Hello and welcome back to the Champion Draft Series. Week 4 recap already, halfway through the season. I'm your host, Pink Ghost, and joining me we've got a special guest. Shadawx, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty well. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to cover this week's episode of the CDS recap.
Yeah, we've got a lot of interesting developments this week, so let's jump right into it. Now, looking at the current leaderboard halfway through this season, we have Mafraju in the lead, to no one's surprise. She's been in the lead for the majority of this series, but we've also got Puffball Panda climbing up to the second place spot now. The only person that she's ever lost to in this series so far is Mafraju herself, so who can really blame her? Shadawx, what are these players actually packing to give them an edge over the rest of the competition?
So like we just heard, both players have had a really strong showing this tournament, and I think a key factor to that is being able to pick up some comfort decks thanks to their champion draft. Mafraju was able to pick up Pike and Rek'Sai to play Lurk, and Ezreal Sejuani to play the Frail European Z Foundry deck, which she's played a lot of in the past. And Puffball, on the other hand, also got to pick up Starspring with Soraka Tom, and Vaintrox, which is generally just an overall good deck, and that she's familiar with. She also has Echo, but no Shreeman Champ to pair it with. So with this Champion Draft Trade Week coming up, it'll be interesting to see if she's able to pick up a Shreeman Champ to pair with it, or if she's just going to leave Echo off on the side. On top of those comfort picks, both play the game a lot while streaming the game, so they're comfortable with making sure the stream's going alright, the recording's fine, that they're getting the optimal plays needed, and while ignoring Twitch chat from making all the wrong plays. But nevertheless, neither player has had an easy time making to this point, so it's really going to be interesting to see how things develop from here on out now that we're at the halfway point.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see if these two are able to hold on to this lead going into the second half of the season, or if it might just get stolen from them. But right now, we are going to go into another segment of our recap. This is Deck Dives. We're back to another deck brought to you by the Redeemable Qualities, and this one has been a common go-to for Spids lately and has been taking a lot of her opponents by surprise, so we're glad to finally be giving it the spotlight. This here is Gwen Alawi.
So this week, Spids has brought this Gwen Alawi deck, and the premise of the deck is not so simple, but at the same time you can kind of see exactly what it plans to do. It plans to stack up the hollowed counters to big numbers, and that way it's really easy to level your Alawi with either a Giant Tentacle, Giant Alawi herself, or just go for the standard hollowed game plan. Swing with Gwen, swing with other units, and beat them down.
Yeah, and one of the cards I want to highlight here is Glimpse Beyond, which is a card that's been floating in and out of this deck as Spids has been bringing it. A card that wasn't being used against Tempo Mao, who was bringing a lot of very proactive, aggressive decks, but when playing against Absolution's Darkness is a great way to turn his removal into your card draw.
Yeah, and like we mentioned, she's brought this deck pretty frequently. With actually the last 3 weeks she's brought it, and she did beat Tempo Mao with it, and this week she beat Absolution. And I think one of the key cards and key changes she's made this week was adding Blood in the Water into the deck, which gives her access to Rally to allow you to stack up those hollowed attacks even more, or get another Ghastly Band from the foyer, or just swing big with Alawi over and over.
Yeah, and I love that one copy of Zap Spray Fin. Not too hard of a unit for Absol's decks to remove, but having that hollowed elusive just sneaking right in there possibly, and then drawing you maybe your Mark of the Isles, or drawing you more draw with Glimpse Beyond, or just a big tentacle smash. Definitely a cheeky little card to throw in there that might just turn the tables in some games. Yeah, this deck is a really fun concept and has worked pretty well for Spids thus far, so we're really excited to finally show it to you all here and give it a bit of a spotlight. But as always, this is not the only spicy deck that it was brought this week, so make sure to tune into the description below for a link to all the decks that players brought to in this 4th week of the Champion Draft Series.
Tempo Mao's Demon Diff had a devastating loss this week to Ikato by getting 2-0'd by them. Demon Diff had a really strong showing in the beginning, but thanks to this loss, getting 2-0'd really put them down in the rankings. Ghost, what exactly happened here?
Demon Diff is honestly a very interesting case study. in the draft series, because it's the only team where I think you could say, hey, this team should be 4-0, but also this team should be 0-4. Now, what do I mean by that? Let me explain right here. Tempo has brought essentially the same lists every week of the series. Joey and I touched on this a bit in week 2, but it's been half the season now, and it's been the same list. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing that necessarily. He has very strong lists that he's been bringing. Azir Irelia, Ash LeBlanc, MF Swain. This is a lot of pressure that this guy is outputting, and not everyone can handle it. But the players that have been respecting the pressure that Tempo has brought and have been adapting and changing their lineups to target these lists that he's been consistently bringing every week, they've been finding a lot of success versus Tempo, like Aikado did this week. So on one hand, if Tempo was adjusting his lists to target his opponent, he might be the most scariest player in the series by far. Like, with all this pressure and then being able to change his list to target things that his opponents are bringing, he might just be too much for anyone to handle. But on the flip side, if these wins that he has received were against players that did respect his list, that did bring lists to beat Tempo, he might be 0-4. Now, I'll give Absolution a little bit of slack since he was the first opponent and didn't really know what he was going to be playing up against. But for the remainder of this series, if every opponent Tempo plays prepares to take on these lists that he's bringing and he does not adapt in the slightest, I'm not sure if he is going to have an easy time making the top 4 for the end of the season. So I just don't know. I would really like to see some more adaptation by Tempo now, because I know he's confident in these lists. I know that he believes that this is the exact list, card for card, that does very well into a wide field. But Shadawx, as I've said with Joey, and I'm going to say it here again, this isn't a wide field. Tempo is going up against a roster of 10 champions at most, with limited regions, with very exposable weaknesses, and if we just saw him adapt in the slightest each week, I'm sure we would see a lot more success from him.
We came in targeting. We knew, once again, exactly what our opponent was going to bring. We came in targeting, and we actually won for once.
But we'll have to see what Tempo decides to do next for the remainder of this series, because who knows, he might just prove me wrong. It's quite possible. I've been wrong before, but now we are going to go into our very special highlight of this week's games.
On this week's highlight, Capital Circuit really believed that the Holy Heretic Soraka Tom deck was a non-threat based on all the landmark removal they were packing. But Puffball Panda showed him that when Tom Kench eats all your blockers, that this healing deck can really put the beat down on you. The Kench is unbenched in this week's highlight.
So I'm going to hard move for Star Spring here. And we found it. This is they're at 6 mana, so this is the turn that they want to play their Aftershock.
Passar seria muito bom também.
I could play Broadback Protector. We're gonna get Tom Kench set up though.
Tá, acho que eu faço isso aqui então.
I can just eat this. I may as well, right?
Come on! Disciplina e aço!
I can just acquire Taste this, honestly, because I've got Astral Protection.
Tentar. Essa é a carta perigosa.
O nome Ferros ficará na história.
This is at 4, which isn't actually that scary.
Eu imaginei que isso ia acontecer, velho. Nossa.
I'm not gonna lie, this is like the fastest Tom Kench level up I've ever gotten in my life.
Tá.
You know, if you told me before this game that I was gonna be playing for Tom Kench Control WinCon against Jace Lux, I wouldn't have believed you, honestly. I really wouldn't have. Hey Lux, what's good?
Escondi minha luz por tempo demais.
I should probably just like star shaping here, right? Go for like a Scourge WinCon.
Bruh. Ah, eu acho que eu sempre uso Jace aqui.
Amanhã nunca pareceu tão brilhante.
We're gonna just eat Jace. See you, Jace.
Tá. Aí existe a chance de ter uma cascata lívida. Mas eu preciso jogar pra Lux agora.
Eu nem preciso do cardápio.
Ah.
Do it, Tom Kench. It's all you, buddy. This was the weirdest Star Spring game I've ever played. Like...
Yeah, I didn't know how much I needed to see a Tom Kench beatdown highlight this week, but I am sure glad I did. Oh, but that's about all the time we have for our recap this week. Here, as always, are the current scores. I know we touched on them briefly a bit earlier, but here they are again, just for your reminder. And here are the match times for week 5. Slight reminder, there is a week break between week 4 and week 5, as you are seeing on the schedule now. But that is when trade week is happening, so expect a lot of interesting updates here on the channel as well as on our Twitter page. Also, stay tuned to this channel as we are going to be uploading interviews with the players over this break week as they talk about their draft strategies, their deck building strategies, their game strategies, and their plans going into the rest of the season. So definitely subscribe to the Champion Draft Series for that if you don't want to miss out on that, as well as the future recaps as we go into the rest of the season. But yeah, that I think is everything. Shadawx, thank you for joining me here right before we get on to break.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast watching the series, and extra exciting to be on one of these recap week episodes. So I look forward to it all.
Yeah, glad to have you, and it's been a blast for me as well. But for now, we are going to say bye to the rest of the viewers. See you all when we're on next time.